My family hid a secret for 20 years, I wasn't supposed to find out. When I was 26, I thought I had a pretty ordinary life. A good job, a small apartment, a circle of friends who weren't perfect but were mine. I didn't grow up rich, but my parents worked hard. Dad was quiet, a man of few words. Mom was the opposite, emotional, dramatic, and controlling in subtle ways. I was always told I was a miracle baby. My mom would say it with this strange mix of pride and sadness, as if my existence carried both joy and some unspoken burden. I never pressed her for details, because as a kid, you just accept what you're told. But one night, everything shifted. I was cleaning out the attic in my parents' house. They were preparing to downsize, and I offered to help. Between boxes of old school projects and Christmas decorations, I found a sealed envelope. It was yellowed, brittle, but addressed in handwriting I didn't recognize. My name was written across the front. I froze. My parents never mentioned anything about letters for me. I shouldn't have opened it. But of course I did. Inside was a birth certificate. Not the one I had seen growing up. This one listed my mother as the same. But under father's name, it was blank. Just empty space. My heart hammered. I flipped through more papers stuffed inside. Court documents. Hospital notes. And then the truth, my father, the man who raised me, the man I called Dad my whole life, wasn't my biological father. There was a name, though. Written in pen on the edge of a hospital discharge paper, Daniel R. I shoved everything back and tried to act normal for the rest of the day. But that night, lying awake in my childhood bedroom, the questions ate me alive. Why did they hide this? Who was Daniel? Did Dad know? Did Mom cheat? Or was it something darker? The next morning, I confronted them at breakfast. I didn't even get to finish my sentence before my mom burst into tears. Dad just sat there, pale and stiff, like a statue. And then, the story came out. Daniel was real. He was my biological father. But he had died before I was born. A car crash, 3 months before my mom gave birth. She was devastated. Alone. My dad, the man I grew up with, had been her friend at the time. He stepped in, supported her, and eventually married her when I was 2. You were too young to understand, Mom sobbed. And then, we just never told you. We didn't want you to feel different. You are his son. He raised you. That's what matters. Dad finally spoke, his voice cracking, I chose you. Every day. Don't ever doubt that. It should have been comforting. But it wasn't. Because if it was all out of love, why hide it for 20 years? Why lie? Why let me believe a false version of myself? I left the house that day with the letter clutched in my hand. My entire identity felt fractured. For weeks, I couldn't look at my parents the same way. Family gatherings felt like theater performances, with everyone pretending the set hadn't collapsed behind the curtain. Eventually, I decided to look into Daniel. I found his obituary, old photographs, even tracked down one of his brothers through Facebook. He looked at me through the screen, this stranger with my nose, my eyes. And I realized there was a whole side of me, of my story, that I'd been denied. I haven't told my parents that I've been reaching out to Daniel's family. Part of me feels like it's betrayal. Part of me feels like it's justice. The truth? I don't know who I am right now. But I do know this, family secrets always find a way to surface. And when they do, they don't just change the past, they rewrite the future. After finding out the truth about my biological father, I felt like I was living in 2 realities at once. In one world, I was the same person I'd always been, son of the man who raised me, child of the family that taught me right from wrong. In the other, I was the son of a stranger named Daniel, a man I never met, whose absence had shaped my life in ways I hadn't realized. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The letter. The blank spot on my birth certificate. The name scrawled in the margins. It felt like a key to a locked door I wasn't supposed to open. But I had already opened it. And now, I had to walk through. Finding Daniel's family. It started with Facebook. I found Daniel's younger brother, let's call him Mark. His profile picture was a blurry photo of him at a barbecue, holding a beer, smiling with the same crooked grin I saw in my own mirror. I stared at his face for days before I finally messaged him. Hi Mark, this might sound strange, but I think we might be related. I'd like to talk, if you're open to it. I didn't expect a reply. But the next morning, there it was. Who are you? We went back and forth. Carefully. Awkwardly. Until finally, I told him my mother's name. The year I was born. The typing bubbles appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then the message came. Holy sh*T. You're Daniel's son. The first meeting. 2 weeks later, I drove 3 hours to meet him. My stomach churned the entire ride. What do you say to the family you never knew existed? Do you shake hands? Hug? Apologize for existing? Mark greeted me outside a modest ranch-style house. He was older now, salt in his hair, but the resemblance was undeniable. You look just like him, he said. We sat in his kitchen for hours. He pulled out photo albums. Pictures of Daniel at 20, laughing with friends. Daniel in a leather jacket, leaning against a car. Daniel holding a guitar. And every photo stabbed me in the chest. Because I saw myself. Mark told me stories. How Daniel loved to surf. How he wrote terrible poetry. How he was reckless, kind, and stubborn. How he died in a car crash coming back from a weekend trip, the same weekend he was planning to propose to my mom. That one broke me. If he had lived just a few months longer, everything would have been different. The secret within the secret. Before I left, Mark handed me an old box. Daniel kept this in his apartment, he said. We packed it away after the accident. It's yours now. I opened it when I got home. Inside were journals, ticket stubs, random souvenirs. And then, buried at the bottom, a letter. It was addressed to my mom. I unfolded it carefully. The ink was faded but still legible. In it, Daniel wrote about how excited he was to become a father. How terrified, too, but ready. How he dreamed of teaching his child to ride a bike, to play guitar, to live boldly. And at the very end. If it's a boy, I want to name him after my grandfather. Please, promise me that. The name written was not my own. I realized in that moment, my mom had hidden more than just the truth about Daniel. She had erased parts of him completely. The confrontation. I couldn't hold it in anymore. The next weekend, I went back to my parents' house. My mom tried to act normal, fussing over dinner, while my dad sat quietly, clearly still shaken from my last outburst. I placed Daniel's letter on the table. Why didn't you ever tell me about him? Why didn't you tell me what he wanted? His name for me? His plans for me? Mom's face went pale. You don't understand, she whispered. After he died, I couldn't bear the reminders. I had to move on. I had to survive. Your father, she gestured at the man who raised me, he saved me. He gave you stability. What good would it have done to tell you all of this? What good? I snapped. Maybe it would have given me the truth. Maybe it would have given me the chance to know who I really am instead of finding out by accident 20 years later. Dad finally spoke. His voice was low, steady. I told her you deserved to know. She begged me not to. Said it would only confuse you. I stayed quiet because I was afraid you'd stop seeing me as your father. The room fell silent. And that's when I realized, all of them, in their own way, had stolen my choice. The fracture. I left that night and didn't answer their calls for days. I spent more time with Mark, and eventually met Daniel's parents, my biological grandparents. They cried when they saw me. Hugged me. Told me I was welcome anytime. It felt warm. Familiar. But also strange. Like I was stepping into a life that should have been mine but wasn't. And yet, I couldn't ignore it. I had two families now. One built on love and lies. The other built on loss and truth. And I didn't know where I belonged. To be continued. Two families, one bloodline. When I first stepped into Daniel's parents' home, my biological grandparents, it felt like walking into an alternate universe. The house smelled like old wood and coffee. Family photos lined the walls. And in almost every picture, there was Daniel. His smile. His eyes. My face staring back at me from 20 years before I was even born. They hugged me like they'd known me all my life. My grandmother wept into my shoulder, whispering, "You look so much like him." My grandfather, stoic and quiet, shook my hand for a long time and just said, "Welcome home." And for a moment, I believed it. The rift at home. But things with my parents only got worse. My mom called constantly, begging me to stop digging into the past. She said I was destroying the family. My dad stayed mostly silent, but his silence cut deeper than words. The final straw came during Sunday dinner. I'd been avoiding them for weeks, but finally agreed to visit. Halfway through the meal, my mom dropped her fork and said, "I want you to stop seeing them." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You don't need them," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "We raised you. We gave you a life. They're just strangers with some DNA. What do you owe them?" I looked at my dad. He didn't defend me. He didn't defend her. He just sat there. That silence told me everything. I was on my own in this. What they hid from me. A week later, Mark, my biological uncle, called. His voice was tight. "Listen, there's something you should know. I wasn't going to tell you, but you deserve the truth." He explained that after Daniel died, his parents, my grandparents, had tried to stay in contact with my mom. They wanted to be part of my life. They offered support, help, even money. But my mom cut them off. Changed her number. Moved houses. Vanished. "She didn't want us in your life," Mark said flatly. "We thought maybe you'd reach out one day. But we didn't know if you even knew about us." My stomach twisted. My mom hadn't just hidden the truth, she had deliberately erased them. She didn't just lie. She stole my grandparents, my uncle, my entire history. The family showdown. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. "Yes," she snapped, "I cut them out. Because they would have clung to you like a ghost of him. I couldn't let them control our lives. I had to move on. I chose what was best for you." I exploded. "No, you chose what was best for you. You robbed me of a family that wanted me. Do you have any idea how much they love me already? And you, what, just thought I'd never find out?" Her voice cracked. "I thought if I loved you enough, it wouldn't matter." Dad finally broke his silence. "We made a mistake. But we raised you. Doesn't that count for anything?" And that's when it hit me, they weren't sorry about lying. They were sorry about being caught. The will. Things got worse when my grandparents invited me to dinner at their house again. After the meal, my grandfather sat me down in the living room. His hands shook as he slid an envelope toward me. "This is our will," he said quietly. "We're rewriting it. You're in it now. You're our grandson. You should have been in it from the start." I froze. Money, property, inheritance, it didn't matter. What mattered was the gesture. They weren't just acknowledging me as family. They were choosing me. And deep down, I knew this would destroy my mother if she found out. The breaking point. When word eventually reached her, and it always does in families, she showed up at my apartment, furious. "How dare you," she screamed. "How dare you let them manipulate you like this? They're just trying to buy you. You're my son. Not theirs. You owe us everything." I'd never seen her so unhinged. And for the first time, I didn't back down. "No," I said. "I don't owe you everything. I owe you honesty. And you never gave me that." "They did." Her face crumpled. She stormed out. "The choice. Now I feel torn in half. On one side, the parents who raised me, who lied to me for 2 decades, but who did give me a roof, a home, and some form of love. On the other, the family who never had the chance, but who embrace me now without hesitation. And I don't know where I belong. Because in choosing one, I feel like I'm betraying the other. But deep down, I think I already know which side I'm drifting toward." To be continued. The War of Bloodlines. For weeks after my mom's meltdown at my apartment, silence stretched between us like a canyon. She didn't call. She didn't text. My dad tried a few times, always cautiously, but I ignored most of his messages. Meanwhile, my bond with Daniel's family only grew stronger. I spent weekends with them, listening to stories, flipping through photo albums, learning who my father had been through their eyes. For the first time, I felt like puzzle pieces were sliding into place. But the more I embraced them, the more I realized, my mother had never been protecting me. She had been protecting herself. A slip of the tongue. It all came to a head one evening at Mark's house. We were sitting around his backyard fire pit, drinking beers, when he said something that made my blood run cold. "You know," he muttered, staring into the flames, "your mom always hated me. Hated our whole family. She blamed us for Daniel's choices. But we weren't the ones who pushed him to drive that night." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Mark sighed. "He was supposed to stay with us that weekend. But your mom got mad at him for canceling plans with her. She begged him to come back early. He left late at night, exhausted, just to keep her happy. And then. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to." I felt my chest tighten. Was my mother indirectly responsible for Daniel's death? A confrontation that turned ugly. I couldn't hold it in. The next day, I drove straight to my parents' house. My dad opened the door, surprised to see me. My mom walked into the living room, her face tight the moment she saw me. "Did you beg Daniel to come back the night he died?" I demanded. Her mouth opened. Closed. Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know he'd crash," she whispered. That was all the confirmation I needed. "You did," I spat. "You pulled him back. You couldn't stand being alone for one weekend, could you? And because of that, he's dead. And because of that, I never got to know him." She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. My dad tried to defend her, his voice trembling. She was young. She was scared. She didn't mean for any of this. "Yeah," I snapped. "And then she buried the truth for 20 years. Don't talk to me about meaning well." I stormed out, leaving them both in ruins. The inheritance bombshell. 2 weeks later, my grandparents made things official. Their lawyer drew up the new will. I wasn't just included, I was the primary heir. The house, their land, their savings, all of it would come to me. When my mom found out, she went ballistic. She showed up at their house, screaming at them for stealing her son and bribing him with money. My grandfather, usually calm, snapped back. You stole him from us first. For 26 years. We're just taking back what you tried to erase. My mom threatened to challenge the will in court. The family war had officially begun. My dad's breaking point. One night, my dad came to see me alone. He looked 10 years older than I remembered. I can't keep doing this, he said. I love you. You're my son, no matter what. But your mother, she's falling apart. She's terrified she's losing you. And maybe she is. But I can't stop her. He paused, his eyes wet. Just don't shut me out completely. Please. I may not be your blood, but I've always been your father. And for the first time in weeks, I broke down. Because I did love him. I always would. But how could I reconcile loving him with resenting her? The final twist. Just when I thought it couldn't get messier, Mark called me again. There's something else, he said, his tone grim. I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but... Daniel kept a second journal. We just found it in storage. My stomach dropped. What's in it? Mark hesitated. Letters. Notes. Plans. He wasn't just planning a proposal. He was planning to leave town with your mom. He wanted to cut ties with everyone else. Even us. He was conflicted. I sat in silence, my world spinning. Had my mom really been the villain? Or had she been the only one Daniel truly wanted to be with? The truth suddenly felt more complicated than ever. To be continued. After weeks of fighting, crying, and hearing versions of the truth that all contradicted each other, I realized something: I'd never know the full story. Daniel was gone. The only people left were the ones who loved him, and me, in their own flawed ways. Yes, my mom lied. Yes, she carried guilt for pulling him back that night. And yes, my grandparents had been robbed of me for decades. But no matter what I chose, someone would feel betrayed. So I made a different choice. I told both families the same thing. I'm not choosing sides. I'm choosing me. I'll have a relationship with whoever respects that. My mom cried, begged, and raged, but eventually she understood. My dad, quietly, just nodded. My grandparents welcomed me no matter what. And in the end, I stopped letting other people define who I was. I'm not just my father's son. I'm not just my mother's child. I'm not just an heir in anyone's will. I'm my own person. And maybe that's the only truth that matters.